When Melissa left for her tech conference in San Diego, I didn't give it a second thought. She'd been going to these industry events for years, always returning with pictures, company swag, and stories about flashy product launches. This time was no different, at least not at first. Except, she started acting off. She got back on a Sunday. I picked her up from the airport, smiling like nothing was wrong. But in the car, she kept checking her phone, texting someone she wouldn't name. When I reached for her hand, she flinched. I played dumb. 2 days later, I found a receipt in her purse from a dinner for two. I wonder why she didn't throw it away. Melissa's smarter than that. Careful. Calculated. The kind of woman who triple checks the stove before leaving the house, who keeps her passwords in a hidden encrypted vault. So why leave a receipt? Sloppy mistake, or maybe part of her wanted to be caught. I checked her texts first. Nothing suspicious. A few work messages, a group chat with her sister, and some meme-laced banter with a coworker. Harmless. Sanitized. But Melissa's too tech-savvy to slip that easily. Then I saw it, a secondary messaging app buried inside a folder labeled Utilities. Something she'd never used before, not that I knew of. It didn't match her usual aesthetic, either. The icon was plain, generic. Easy to overlook. But when I opened it, the secret spilled out like floodwater. Hundreds of messages. Pictures. Voice notes. Videos. And they didn't just date back to her recent trip. No, these went back 6 months. 6 months of late-night strategy calls, of working late and networking dinners. The man's name was Daniel, and according to the messages, he was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, wild, a man who made her feel alive. I scrolled, numb and detached, reading how she'd planned weekends away with him under the guise of women's retreats. She'd told him about me, too. Described me like a piece of old furniture, reliable, dull, always there. A placeholder. One message stopped me cold. I can't leave him yet. It's not the right time. But I will. Soon. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Not because I was crying. That would have been easier. But because something in me broke so quietly, so completely, that even rage couldn't find its voice. I could have confronted her right then. But I didn't. I closed the app. Placed her phone exactly where I found it. Then I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cooling cup of coffee she made me that morning, and made a decision. If she thought she was playing the long game, she had no idea who she married. I did a little digging, nothing too obvious, just enough to stay under the radar. A few keywords from the messages, an old email thread she forgot to delete, and within an hour, I had a name. Daniel Hartman. The guy she's been cheating with. According to LinkedIn, he's a senior solutions architect at a startup in San Francisco. Tech guy. Wears blazers without ties, uses words like disrupt and synergy, and probably thinks he's God's gift to innovation. His profile picture shows him with a smug half-smile and a craft IPA in hand. A little more searching, and I found his Twitter, locked, but his Instagram wasn't. Public. Arrogant. Perfect. Photos of beach trips. Rooftop bars. A private story highlight titled SD Weekend. And there she was. Melissa. Just barely visible in the reflection of his sunglasses in one shot. Another showed a woman's arm, hers, unmistakably, resting on his leg while they toasted with wine. Her ring hand. No ring. So he knew. This wasn't some fling with a clueless third party. Daniel knew she was married. He didn't care. That made it worse. Or better, depending on how you look at it. See, now it wasn't just betrayal. It was conspiracy. And that opened up an entirely new set of options. I wasn't going to go over there and start yelling like some cliché. That would make it about emotion. I wanted control. And now I had a name, a face, a job, a network. I wasn't just going to ruin their secret. I was going to ruin her. Exactly. That's the difference, isn't it? Daniel didn't stand in front of our families and swear loyalty. He didn't slip a ring on my finger and say, forever, no matter what. He didn't look me in the eye during a tough year and say, we'll get through this. She did. Melissa did. So no, I didn't care about him. Not really. He was just a symptom. A side effect. The disease was her. She was the one who dismantled everything we built while pretending to water the foundation. Smiling. Lying. Acting like the life we had was still real when she'd already burned the blueprint and started sketching a new one behind my back. So I stopped wasting time digging into Daniel's life. I didn't need revenge on a man who owed me nothing. But her. I owed her the truth, the kind of truth that doesn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It comes quiet. Sharp. Precise. I started with the finances. She had no idea how much of our accounts I controlled behind the scenes. Her name was on the joint checking, but she never noticed that the savings, my savings, were separate. I began siphoning anything extra. Transferring, dissolving, rerouting. Quiet moves, legal ones. She wouldn't feel it right away. But she would. Next came the house. I contacted a lawyer discreetly. Turns out infidelity, when documented, still means something in this state. Especially when the cheating spouse has been using marital funds for travel, hotels, meals with the other man. That's financial misconduct. I printed every receipt. Screenshot every message. Built my case in silence. And all the while, I smiled. Played the doting husband. Let her think the lie was still working. Because I didn't want revenge in the form of yelling or breaking things. I wanted her to realize exactly what she lost, only after it was too late to get it back. It started small. They always say the fall feels slow until you hit the bottom. Melissa came home on a Tuesday, confused. Hey, did you take money out of the joint account? She asked, holding her phone up like it accused me. I looked up from my book and shrugged. Just paying some bills. She nodded slowly, not pushing it. Not yet. That was phase 1. Phase 2 hit a week later, when her company's HR called her in to discuss her conduct at the San Diego conference. Apparently, someone had sent in screenshots, her with a colleague in a hotel bar, timestamps and all. She came home pale that night, dropped her purse on the floor, and stood in the doorway like a ghost. Someone's trying to sabotage me. Really? I said, flipping a page. That's awful. She looked at me for a long time. I didn't flinch. Then came the moment it all fell apart. I came home early from work. She was on the floor of our walk-in closet, phone in one hand, sobbing into the other. She'd just gotten off the phone with her lawyer. She finally knew. The accounts had been drained, legally. Her name removed from certain documents she never thought to read. She'd signed a few things I slipped into her to-do pile, too. Nothing illegal. Nothing forced. Just the consequences of trust. Why are you doing this to me? She asked, voice raw, mascara streaking down her face. That was the moment. The one I waited for. I knelt in front of her, calm, measured, and said, because you promised me forever. And you gave it to someone else behind my back for 6 months. This isn't punishment, Melissa. This is balance. I made a mistake, she whispered. No. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, I said, my tone flat. You made a series of conscious choices. She looked like a stranger then. Stripped of excuses. Of control. Of the power she thought she held. I stood up. I'm not angry anymore, I told her. I just don't owe you anything. And with that, I left the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the silence finish the job. Melissa was furious when she left. She didn't cry this time. No tears. No begging. Just that tight-jawed, venom-laced anger that says, how dare you outplay me? Like she was the victim. Like I was the one who broke the vows. She packed a duffel bag in silence. Tossed clothes in without folding them, chaotic, desperate. She didn't look at me once. Just grabbed her charger, slammed the closet door, and muttered, "I can't be here with you right now." "Then don't be," I said without looking up from my laptop. She stormed out. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't care. Daniel's place? A hotel? A friend who still believed her half-truths? Let them deal with the fallout. Let them comfort her when the full weight of her consequences settled in. I had better things to do. Like finalizing the divorce papers. I'd already retained a lawyer weeks ago, before she even realized anything was wrong. Smart guy. Sharp. Knew how to make a clean cut look like an accident. We'd gone through everything: assets, property, infidelity documentation. She wouldn't walk away broke, but she sure as hell wouldn't walk away whole. My email pinged with the final draft of the filing. Petition for dissolution of marriage, grounds: adultery, documented. Financial misconduct, documented. I read through it calmly, methodically. Attached the proof: screenshots, bank records, hotel receipts, messages. Truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be clear. I signed it. And I felt nothing. Curiosity got the best of me. I hadn't checked Daniel's Instagram since the fallout started, but something compelled me to look. Not out of jealousy. Just to confirm what I already suspected. And there it was. A new photo. Sunset in the background, rooftop bar again. He has a thing for those, apparently. His arm around a blonde I didn't recognize. Younger. Tighter dress. That performative "look how happy I am" smile plastered across both their faces. The caption? Fresh starts #vibes #new energy. No trace of Melissa. No tagged posts. No sad poetry or cryptic stories. Just a clean slate. So I guess they broke up. That's the funny thing about affairs, they're built on the thrill of secrecy, not substance. When the lie collapses and the real world comes in, divorces, consequences, HR reports, it's not so sexy anymore. I almost laughed. Melissa blew up our marriage, burned years of trust to the ground, and jumped headfirst into a fantasy. And now, just weeks later, she's not even the main character in Daniel's highlight reel. Maybe he dumped her the moment the drama got real. Maybe she tried to cling, and he pulled away. Or maybe she realized she traded a man who stood by her for someone who saw her as a weekend escape. Either way, I was done caring. She broke something that can't be fixed. And now she's alone, not just without me, but without him too. Actions have consequences. And watching hers come full circle? That was the closest thing to peace I've felt in a long time. She stood in the hallway, clutching the divorce papers like they might catch fire in her hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't respond. Not right away. I waited, not for drama, not for tears. Just to see if she meant it. I was stupid, she continued, stepping forward. Selfish. I thought I wanted something different, something exciting. I thought I could have both lives without consequences. But I lost everything. I lost you. Her voice cracked, and that was the first time it didn't sound rehearsed. She looked at me, really looked, and there was no arrogance in her eyes anymore. No smugness. Just shame. Regret. Fear. And a kind of vulnerability I hadn't seen in her in years. "I'm not asking for us to go back to what we were," she said. "I know I don't deserve that. I don't know how to be without this place. Without you. Please, let me stay. Just until I figure things out." I could have said no. I had every right. But I wasn't heartless. I'd loved her once, and some part of me, buried under the ash of betrayal, still remembered what that love used to feel like. Besides, letting someone suffer doesn't always make you stronger. Sometimes, mercy cuts deeper. "You can stay," I said finally, "but this isn't a reconciliation. This isn't forgiveness. It's a roof. A pause. Nothing more." She nodded quickly, blinking fast to keep the tears in. "I'll sleep in the guest room," she said, already backing toward the stairs. "I'll stay out of your way." I swear. I didn't reply. I just watched her walk up with slow, heavy steps, like each one reminded her she was no longer a wife, but a guest in the home she helped destroy. I sat back down, alone again with my thoughts. I hadn't forgiven her. At 2 a.m., I woke up to the soft weight beside me. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming, maybe just half asleep, my mind playing tricks on me. But then I felt the familiar warmth, the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. I turned my head, and there she was. Melissa. In her usual spot. Curled up against me, like nothing had changed. Like the last few weeks hadn't happened. Like I hadn't found out about the affair, hadn't caught her red-handed, hadn't already made up my mind to let her go. I froze. My heart thudded against my ribs, but not for the reasons I'd expect. There was no rage. No anger. Just confusion. A quiet, sharp ache where the love used to be, where the trust used to be. She shifted in her sleep, a soft sigh escaping her lips as she moved closer, instinctively seeking the warmth of my body. I should have pushed her away. I should have gotten up, walked out, said something cutting. But instead, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. What did she want from me now? Did she think, in the dead of night, when everything was raw and exposed, that I'd forget? That I'd pretend none of it happened? That I'd reach out and pull her into my arms like we were the same people we used to be? I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just let her sleep, let the weight of everything settle in the room, thick and suffocating. Eventually, she shifted again, half asleep, unaware of the tension in the air, and I could feel her hand rest gently on my chest. That old touch. The one that once meant everything. And yet, it meant nothing now. I wondered if she realized I was wide awake. If she felt the space between us, realized it wasn't just physical. That distance was measured in something deeper now. I slowly pulled myself out of bed, careful not to disturb her, as if every movement could shatter the fragile illusion that everything was still intact. Her soft breathing filled the room, steady, unaware. I paused for a moment, just looking at her, the woman who once was everything to me, now nothing more than a stranger in my bed. I stood there, rooted in place, for longer than I should have. Then, without a word, I turned and slipped out of the bedroom, gently closing the door behind me. The living room was quiet, still. The couch, as uncomfortable as it was, felt like a refuge. It wasn't because I couldn't be around her. It was because I knew I had nothing to say that night. There was no explanation, no blame to place, no solution to offer. Just a hollow ache in my chest, a weight that pressed down on me with each breath. I lay on the couch, pulling the thin blanket over me, but the cold air from the window made my skin prickle. Still, I couldn't bring myself to move. I stared at the ceiling, trying to push the images of her beside me, of what we used to be, out of my head. I couldn't understand why she was still here. Why, after everything, she still thought we could just pick up where we left off. I left early for work the next morning, the tension from the night before still clinging to my skin like a heavy coat I couldn't shake off. I didn't want to deal with her, not yet, not when I wasn't sure what I'd say, or if I could even look at her without feeling that bitter taste in my mouth. I told myself I needed to focus, needed the distance, but the truth was, I was avoiding her. Avoiding the conversation that was inevitably coming. The one where she would apologize, beg for forgiveness, and try to weave some version of her regret into a plea for reconciliation. I sat in my office, pretending to work, my mind too distracted to be productive. I could hear the usual hum of the office around me, phones ringing, people chatting in the halls, but all of it felt distant, hollow. Then, around noon, she showed up. The door to my office opened without a knock, and there she was. Melissa, standing in the doorway, looking small and fragile in the harsh fluorescent light. Her eyes were swollen, like she hadn't slept, like she hadn't stopped thinking about everything that had fallen apart. I didn't stand up when I saw her. I didn't want to make it feel like we were back to anything familiar. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice quiet, tentative. I stared at her for a moment, unsure of what to say. There were 1,000 things running through my mind, but I knew none of them were helpful. "Not here," I said finally, keeping my tone flat. This isn't the place. She nodded, her lips pressed together, and she stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. I could feel the tension between us like a living thing, thick and heavy. It was clear she hadn't given up yet, not on us, not on trying to fix things. But I had. "Why did you come here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She hesitated, then sat down across from me. "I needed to see you. I've been thinking. I don't know what to do, but I know I need to make things right." I didn't speak for a moment. Her words hung in the air, and I realized that this, her showing up at my work, wasn't about wanting to fix things. It was about her wanting control. "Melissa, you don't get to make things right anymore," I said quietly. "You had your chance. More than one, actually." Her face flushed. "I know. I know what I did. And I don't expect everything to go back to normal. But can we just talk? Please?" I leaned back in my chair, studying her, looking for any trace of the woman I used to know. The one who didn't feel the need to sneak around, to lie. But all I saw now was someone who had broken everything they once had and was now desperately scrambling to fix it. "I think you should go," I said finally, the words falling out with a weight I didn't realize was there. "I can't do this here. Not now. Not with you." Her eyes widened slightly, and I could tell she hadn't expected that response. "You're just going to walk away?" I nodded slowly. "You walked away first. I'm just catching up." I walked through the front door, already bracing myself for whatever version of Melissa would be waiting for me tonight. But nothing could have prepared me for this. She was in our bedroom, standing by the bed, dressed in something I hadn't seen in a long time, a black lace lingerie set that clung to her body the way it used to, making her look like the woman I once couldn't take my hands off. Her hair was tousled, her makeup carefully done to accentuate the curves of her face, the glow of her skin. For a moment, it felt like the past had come rushing back, trying to pull me under. The woman I'd married, the woman I once loved. But then it hit me. I felt nothing. Not the heat. Not the desire. Not the longing that used to fill the room every time she stood in front of me like that. I just felt cold. Hollow. Empty. She watched me, waiting for a reaction. There was a faint nervousness in her eyes, but also a certain expectation. She still thought that this was all it would take. That the same seductive tricks could mend the broken bond between us. But it didn't work. I stood in the doorway, my mind 1,000 miles away. I didn't want to say it. Didn't want to admit it out loud. But I couldn't lie to myself anymore. "I don't feel anything," I said quietly, almost too calm for the storm of emotions raging inside me. Her expression faltered. The smile she had plastered on her face began to slip, and she took a small step forward, as if she could erase the space between us with one desperate move. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm numb," I said, the words coming out without emotion, without the sting I thought they would have. "I don't feel the desire anymore. The connection we had? It's gone. And I can't pretend it's still there just because you're standing in front of me like this." Her eyes widened, and I could see the hurt creeping in. She took another step forward, closer now, almost touching me. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, don't say that. I've changed. I'm sorry. I shook my head, cutting her off before she could go any further. "No, Melissa. You're not sorry. Not really. If you were, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have hurt me like this." Her lips trembled, and for the first time in weeks, I saw real vulnerability in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she repeated, but this time it was smaller, quieter. She reached out as if she wanted to touch me, but I stepped back. "I don't want your apology. Not anymore," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need your remorse. I need you to face the fact that this, whatever this is, it's over. And no amount of you standing here in that outfit is going to fix it." I heard her break down as I turned to leave, the sound of her sobs piercing the air. It wasn't the kind of cry that demanded attention, not loud or dramatic. It was raw, soft, and desperate, like the weight of everything she'd done finally came crashing down on her. I stopped at the door but didn't turn around. I couldn't. Not yet. Not when everything I was feeling, everything I had worked to suppress, was threatening to surface. "Melissa," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, even though the knot in my throat tightened. "I can't do this anymore. I can't fix this." Her face was wet, her eyes red and swollen. She looked up at me, pleading with her gaze, but there was nothing left for me to give her. "Please," she whispered again, barely audible through her tears. "I never meant to hurt you. I was stupid. I was wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. You knew exactly what you were doing," I interrupted, my voice calm but cold. "And now I know exactly who you are." Her anger hit me like a tidal wave the moment I walked out of the room. I barely made it down the hallway before her voice cut through the silence, sharp and accusing. "You think I did this because I wanted to?" She spat, her voice rising. "You think I didn't care about us? That I just woke up one day and decided to screw everything up for fun?" I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I already knew where this was going. She stormed into the hallway, her face red with frustration, her hands trembling at her sides. "You were never here. You were too busy working, too busy climbing your stupid corporate ladder, too busy to notice I was falling apart. I needed someone. I needed attention, Mark. And Daniel gave it to me." Her words stung, but not in the way she hoped. I could hear the bitterness in her voice, the raw frustration, but there was something else there too, something deeper. She wasn't justifying her actions to me anymore. She was trying to justify them to herself. "I wasn't enough for you," I said, my voice flat. "That's what you're really saying. You needed someone else because I wasn't giving you enough attention. Well, maybe you should have told me. Maybe if you hadn't kept it all buried, we could have worked through it." She threw her hands up, her eyes flashing with anger. "Oh, now you want to play the blame game? You think I didn't try to tell you? How many times did I beg you to take a night off? How many times did I tell you we needed more than just your paycheck? But you didn't hear me, Mark. You didn't see me. You just saw a woman who didn't have your full attention, and you couldn't be bothered." The words stung more than they should have, not because they were true, but because they were coming from her, someone who had already given up on us long before Daniel had come into the picture. I turned around to face her, finally locking eyes with her, the anger in my chest rising up, but tempered by a strange calmness. "So, that's your excuse? That you needed someone else to fill the void? That he gave you what I couldn't?" She crossed her arms over her chest, eyes narrowing. "I never meant for it to go this far. But when you're neglected long enough, when you're ignored, you stop caring. I stopped caring about you, about us. I just wanted to feel something. And Daniel, he made me feel seen." My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice even. "That's your justification? That's why you destroyed everything?" Her face flushed with fury. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to hurt you? No, Mark. I just wanted to feel like I mattered for once. Like I wasn't just your wife, I wanted to be me. The woman I used to be before you buried me in work, in responsibilities, in everything but us." I didn't have the strength to argue anymore. I couldn't keep fighting for a marriage that was already gone. "You made your choice," I said quietly, turning away. "And I'm not going to be your fallback. You made your bed. Now you have to lie in it." She stood there, her chest heaving with anger and frustration, but I didn't wait for her to speak again. I walked past her, not looking back. A week passed after the explosion of anger, after the shouting match that left us both raw and broken in ways I hadn't imagined. It wasn't the kind of week where things could just go back to normal, and I knew it. She knew it too. Melissa had left. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. She found a place to stay, a small apartment, just enough for her to escape the house we'd once shared. She didn't even bother to ask if she could come back, and I didn't offer. It felt like the kind of space we both needed, even if neither of us had the courage to admit it at the time. The day the divorce was final felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but it wasn't a relief I had expected. It wasn't the closure I had thought would wash over me once all the papers were signed, once the legalities were taken care of. In the weeks leading up to that day, I had prepared myself for the finality of it all. I'd imagined what it would feel like to move on, how freeing it would be to put an end to this chapter and close the door on a life I no longer recognized. But when the time came, it wasn't freeing. It was just empty. I sat in the lawyer's office, staring at the papers in front of me. They were no longer just pieces of paper, they were symbols of everything we had built, everything we had lost. I looked at the section where Melissa had signed, her name in neat, perfect script, and I felt nothing. No anger. No relief. Just quiet. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I heard from an old friend of mine who still kept in touch with people in Melissa's circle. He'd called me one evening, his tone casual at first, but then the topic shifted. "Hey, man, I've been hearing some things," he started, his voice hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he should be telling me this. "You remember Daniel, right? The guy she was seeing. Well, she tried to reach out to him. A few times. I think she was hoping to patch things up, maybe pick up where they left off." I couldn't help but feel a cold pang in my chest. Part of me had expected it. She had always run to someone else when things got difficult between us. But hearing it from a friend, hearing that she was still seeking someone to fill the void, still trying to hold on to that illusion of something meaningful, hit differently. "I'm guessing he didn't respond?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant, but my voice betrayed the tension in my chest. My friend hesitated before answering. "No. He ghosted her. Completely." The words hung in the air, a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness swirling inside me. She had tried to go back to him, thinking that the connection they had was enough to fill the gap I'd left behind. But Daniel had moved on. He wasn't interested. I don't know why that hit me so hard. Maybe because it made me realize something. Melissa had fallen into the same trap I had. She had been searching for someone to make her feel validated, someone to tell her she was enough, someone to ease her loneliness. But even the man she'd turned to wasn't willing to give her what she needed. The realization that Daniel had ghosted her wasn't a triumph for me, though. It wasn't a victory to hold over her head. If anything, it just made me feel more resigned. She was alone now, and I wasn't sure if that made me feel sad for her or relieved that I was no longer tied to her drama. I let the news sit in my mind for a few days, trying to process it, but I couldn't. Part of me wanted to reach out, to ask her if she was okay. But another part of me knew better. She had made her choices. She had walked away from me when I was still trying to hold things together. Now, she had to face the consequences of those decisions. And I had to face mine. The fact that I had already moved on. The fact that I wasn't running back to her, no matter how much she might have hoped for it. I didn't contact her. I didn't try to make things right. What we had was gone, and no amount of her reaching out to someone else, whether it was Daniel or anyone else, was going to change that. I had to focus on moving forward. Whatever that meant.